Okay, so for this deep dive, we're kind of switching things up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're analyzing a YouTube video, but it's not your typical cat video or makeup tutorial, you know.
Right.
This one is a language lesson, specifically English phrases for apologies.
Huh, interesting.
But it's presented as this mini drama between a couple.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a unique approach to learning.
What's really interesting here is that while it's designed for language learners, the scenario they use kind of taps into some pretty universal relationship dynamics. It's like a soap opera with
All
subtitles.
right. And it got me thinking about how, even though the words are for learners, the emotions behind them are something everyone can relate to. We'll be unpacking not just the phrases themselves, but also what they reveal about communication, love, and even those quirky little pet names we use.
Exactly. The video acts as a springboard to explore the deeper cultural and psychological aspects of language.
So the video opens with this couple, and the woman asks, "Can we talk?" I mean, how many times have we heard that phrase and instantly known it's not going to be a fun chat?
Right, it's loaded with tension. It immediately signals a shift from casual conversation to something more serious, maybe even confrontational.
Definitely sets the mood. And then the guy responds with, "Sure, honey." So we're already getting a glimpse into their dynamic with that pet name.
Interesting how the woman pushes back a bit with, "We're talking now, aren't we?" You know what I mean?
Ooh,
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
You.
Always gets me. It's like she's trying to make him acknowledge that this isn't just small talk. There's something deeper she wants to address.
It's a fascinating phrase because it can be used in so many ways. It can be a genuine check for understanding, a way to seek validation, or even a tactic to avoid saying something directly. The tone of voice really determines its meaning.
It's like they're engaging in a subtle linguistic dance trying to figure each other out.
And that dance gets even more intricate when the woman says, "I want to know where this relationship is going."
Whoa, now she's getting to the heart of the matter. This isn't about deciding what to eat for dinner. It's about wanting clarity on their future together.
And notice how she specifically says, "I'm in love with you and I need to know." There's a deliberate distinction between loving someone and being in love with them.
That's a really important point. To love can be applied to so many relationships, family, friends, even pets. But to be in love implies romantic feelings, a deeper level of commitment, and a sense of exclusivity.
It makes you wonder if the creators of this video were aware of the subtle but powerful message they were conveying with that choice of phrase. Have you ever stopped to think about the implications of to love versus to be in love?
Definitely. It's something that's come up in my own life, trying to figure out what those feelings actually mean and how to express them.
I think it's something most people grapple with at some point. Language can be so nuanced, especially when it comes to matters of the heart.
Back in the video, the guy responds with, "I think you're awesome," which, well, isn't exactly the romantic declaration she was hoping for.
It's almost comical how he seems to miss the emotional weight of her statement. And his next line, "I'm awesome," just adds another layer of, shall we say, self-absorption.
It's like he's completely missing the point, or maybe he's intentionally deflecting. And the woman picks up on this, saying, "Well, I guess that's my answer, isn't it, honey?" That pet name is back, but this time it almost drips with sarcasm.
The tone has definitely shifted. It's no longer a term of endearment, but a way of highlighting the disconnect between them. And then she delivers the blow. "Look, if you don't love me, it's not a thing."
Ouch, rejection hurts, even in a language learning video. But what's interesting is how she immediately follows that up with, "All right, we've had our laughs."
It's as if she's trying to soften the blow to acknowledge that there have been good times, even though things seem to be heading south.
And "we've had our laughs" is such a bittersweet phrase. It encapsulates those shared moments of joy, but also hints at a sense of finality, like they're closing a chapter.
It also speaks to the cyclical nature of relationships. There are peaks and valleys, moments of laughter and moments of tension. Acknowledging both is essential for understanding the full picture.
And then she drops another bombshell. "Maybe it's just time we," leaving that sentence unfinished. Talk about leaving someone hanging.
It's brilliant from a storytelling perspective. It creates this incredible sense of anticipation and dread. You're left wondering, time we what? Break up, move in together, elope to Vegas.
Right. The possibilities are endless. It really highlights how much power lies in those open-ended phrases.
That feeling of anticipation, of being on the precipice of something unknown, is something we can all relate to, whether it's in a relationship, a career, or any other aspect of life. Have you ever experienced that kind of edge of your seat moment where you know something big is about to happen, but you're not sure what it is?
Oh, absolutely. That feeling can be both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. And it's definitely a powerful tool for storytellers to keep us hooked.
Speaking of powerful tools, we've been so engrossed in the drama of the dialogue that we haven't even touched on the specific phrases they're trying to teach.
That's true. There are some real gems in there, even beyond the "can we talk" and the you know what I mean?
Yeah.
One that stood out to me was the woman's question, where is this relationship going? It's such a universal question, and it can apply to so much more than just romantic relationships.
Absolutely. You could just as easily ask, where is this project going? Or
Right.
where is my career going? It's about seeking clarity and direction on any path or trajectory.
And the video actually gives examples of how you could use that phrase in different situations, like talking about your career or even a confusing movie plot.
Right.
It's a reminder that even though this video is framed around a relationship, the language skills they're teaching have broader applications.
That's one of the things I appreciate about this approach. It's not just about memorizing phrases, it's about understanding how to adapt them to different contexts.
Okay, so we left off on a cliffhanger with the woman saying, maybe it's just time we, but never actually finishing the sentence.
Leaving us to fill in the blank, which I think is a clever way to engage the viewer and make them think about the different possibilities.
So what do you think she was going to say? Break up. Get married. Start a worm farm together. I mean, the options are endless.
Exactly. And that's part of what makes language so fascinating. The same words can have vastly different meanings depending on the context and the speaker's intention.
Before we get too lost in speculation, let's rewind a bit and talk about some of the other phrases they highlight. One that really struck me was, we've had our laughs.
It's a simple phrase, but it carries a lot of weight. It acknowledges that the relationship has had its moments of joy, even if things are now taking a turn for the worse.
And they give some alternative phrases in the video like, we've had our ups and downs, or we've had our issues, which all capture that sense of a shared history, both good and bad.
It's a reminder that no relationship is perfect. There will always be challenges and disagreements. It's how we navigate those challenges that determines the strength of the bond.
It's like that saying, it's not about finding someone who makes you happy all the time, but about finding someone who makes you feel happy to be alive.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Relationships are about growth, about supporting each other through those inevitable ups and downs.
Speaking of ups and downs, sometimes those lead to the need for a good old-fashioned apology, which, if you remember, was the original theme of this video. We got so caught up in the relationship drama that we almost forgot about the apologies.
Right, but they do come back to it in the end. With a twist, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, the ending is definitely unexpected. Out of nowhere, she pulls out a gun. Talk about a dramatic way to apologize.
It's over the top for sure, but it does highlight the intensity of emotions that can sometimes be involved in apologies. It's like they're saying sorry isn't always easy or straightforward.
And his response, "Oh, baby, I'm so sorry," is almost comical given the circumstances. It's like a cliche from a romantic comedy,
Yeah.
but juxtaposed with this intense, almost threatening situation.
It creates a really interesting dissonance. They're playing with our expectations, blurring the lines between humor and drama.
And speaking of playing with expectations, let's talk about those pet names. The video goes into quite a bit of detail about the different terms of endearment we use in English.
Pet names are fascinating because they can be so culturally specific. What's considered sweet and affectionate in one language might sound strange or even offensive in another.
Like the example they give in the video, gourd, which apparently means fat in Spanish, but can be a term of endearment in some contexts.
Right. Or the French ma poule, which translates to my flea, not exactly something you'd want to call your sweetheart in most English-speaking cultures.
So what are some of the more common pet names in English? The video mentions honey, baby, sweetheart, darling, and of course the classic honey bunny.
And then there are those that are a bit more unique, like Pooh Bear or Snuggle Muffin. Those often reflect a more personal inside joke kind of dynamic.
I've definitely been known to use a few of those myself. What about you? Any guilty pleasures in the pet name department?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a guilty pleasure, but I do find the evolution of pet names in relationships quite interesting. What starts as a silly nickname can become a term of endearment that's laden with shared history and meaning.
Absolutely. And it's not just limited to romantic relationships.
Mm.
We use pet names for friends and family, too. It's a way to express affection and closeness.
I think it speaks to our need for connection, for creating a sense of intimacy through language.
I'm actually really curious to hear what pet names our listeners use. Do you have any favorites or maybe some that you find particularly funny or endearing? Share them with us on social media. We'd love to hear about the different ways you express affection through language.
Wow, this deep dive has been really eye-opening, you know? Who knew an English language learning video could spark so many conversations?
It just goes to show you the power of language. I mean, it goes way beyond just, conveying information. It's about emotions, relationships, even our whole worldview. It really is. Like, we set out to analyze some phrases,
Yeah.
but we ended up talking about so much more, like communication and culture and all the messy stuff that comes with relationships.
Exactly. And you know what? The video was just the jumping off point. It gave us a framework to explore these bigger ideas.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways for our listeners? What do we want them to remember?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to remember that language is powerful. You know, the words we choose or tone of voice, even those silly little pet names we use, it all shapes how we connect with each other.
It's like we're all using the secret code to build relationships and express ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes, yeah, it can be tricky to figure out.
But that's what makes it so interesting. We're constantly learning and adapting and trying to understand each other.
I think this deep dive has shown us just how important it is to be mindful of the language we use, both in our personal lives and professionally. I mean, one little word or phrase can completely change how our message is received.
Absolutely. And the thing is, language is always evolving. New words pop up, old words take on new meanings, and our ways of communicating are constantly shifting. It's a lifelong journey.
So to everyone listening, we encourage you to keep exploring the power of language. Pay attention to the words you use, the words you hear, and how they shape your experiences. You might be surprised by what you discover.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, challenge your assumptions, and look for those hidden meanings behind everyday language.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of language and communication. We'll see you next time for another fascinating